In the sun-scorched streets of Kigali, Rwanda, in April 1994, Paul Rusesabagina is a man of style, connections, and calculated favors. As the house manager of the luxurious Hotel des Mille Collines, a Belgian-owned oasis, he navigates the city's simmering tensions with a sharp suit, a confident smile, and a pocketful of bribes. His world is one of order, of pleasing powerful people, from Rwandan army generals to European diplomats to store up favors for a rainy day he hopes will never come. He procures fine Scotch for General Bizimungu and fresh Scottish lobsters for visiting dignitaries, all while maintaining a deliberate distance from the dangerous politics swirling around him. The hateful rhetoric of Hutu Power Radio, calling his Tutsi neighbors cockroaches, is just background noise he tunes out. His wife, Tatiana, is a Tutsi, a fact that complicates his carefully constructed neutrality, but Paul believes his influence, his Hutu identity, and his powerful friends create a protective bubble around his family. This belief is shaken when he witnesses soldiers drag his Tutsi neighbor, Victor, from his home. Tatiana pleads with him to use his connections to do something, but Paul refuses, explaining the cold calculus of his world. Family is all that matters, he tells her. Wasting a precious favor on a neighbor is a risk he cannot afford. He believes the coming peace accords, brokered by the UN and celebrated at his hotel, will calm the rising tide of hatred. He assures his worried brother-in-law Thomas that the world is watching and that peace is inevitable. That illusion is shattered on the night of April 6th. An explosion rocks the city. The plane carrying the Hutu president has been shot down. The radio immediately blames the Tutsi cockroaches, and a chilling signal is broadcast across the nation: cut the tall trees. It's the code for the genocide to begin. Paul arrives home to find his house dark and filled with terrified Tutsi neighbors who have fled the rampaging Interahamwe militia. The streets erupt in violence, and the night is filled with screams and gunfire. When his young son, Roger, sneaks out to find his friend and returns covered in blood, not his own, the horror becomes deeply personal. At dawn, Hutu soldiers storm Paul's home. His carefully saved favors are now his only currency for survival. In a tense standoff, an army captain orders Paul to take them to another hotel to open a safe. Paul complies, but the captain discovers the Tutsi neighbors hiding in his van. He puts a gun in Paul's hand and orders him to execute them. Thinking fast, Paul negotiates, bribing the captain with all the cash he has to spare his family and, eventually, the neighbors he once refused to help. He leads them all to the one place he thinks might be safe, the Mille Collines. Upon arriving at the hotel, Paul finds chaos. His Belgian boss is evacuating, leaving him in charge of an island of terrified refugees and panicked European guests. The Mille Collines transforms overnight from a luxury resort into a fortress and a sanctuary. Paul, the meticulous manager, becomes a reluctant leader. His authority now the only thing standing between over 1,000 people and the machete-wielding killers outside. He works tirelessly, using the hotel's resources, its phones, its fax machine, its reputation to fight for their lives. He instructs the refugees to call every influential foreigner they know to shame the world into action. Let them know, he says, if they let go of that hand, you will die. When the hotel staff begins to falter, he rallies them, reminding them that the Mille Collines is a 5-star establishment and they will run it that way, even in hell. His challenges are relentless. Gregoire, a Hutu receptionist, openly defies him, threatening to expose Tatiana's Tutsi heritage. Paul must continue to bribe and flatter General Bizimungu, who sees the hotel as his personal liquor cabinet. In a chilling conversation, Paul lies to the general, inventing a story about American spy satellites that will be used to identify war criminals. They can photograph the epaulets on your shoulder, he bluffs, planting a seed of fear that he hopes will keep the army at bay. He even ventures out into the fog-shrouded, corpse-littered streets with Gregoire to buy supplies from George Rutaganda, the Interahamwe leader, who chillingly informs him soon all the Inezi will be dead. We are halfway there already. The journey back takes them down a river road carpeted with hundreds of bodies, a sight that breaks Paul, reducing him to sobs in the quiet sanctuary of the hotel gardens. Hope arrives in the form of French and Belgian soldiers, but it's a cruel mirage. The intervention force is not there to stop the genocide, they are only evacuating the white guests. As the buses pull away, leaving the Rwandan refugees behind, the full weight of their abandonment crushes them. Paul watches as a Scottish cameraman, Jock, weeps in shame, screaming at his producer, "What the fuck sort of journalists are we, running from a war?" The world has turned its back. With the Europeans gone, the Rwandan army arrives, ordering everyone out. In a moment of sheer desperation, Paul calls the president of Sabena, the hotel's parent company in Brussels. The executive makes a frantic call to the French government, and the soldiers miraculously withdraw. Paul has bought more time, but he knows it's running out. The refugees, once grateful, begin to turn on him, accusing him of profiting from their misery. He confronts them, laying bare the ugly truth of his deals. "I pay him and he keeps you alive. Anyone want to take their money back?" Hope flickers again when Colonel Oliver of the UN announces that a small number of families, including Paul's, have been granted exit visas. The joy is tempered by the agony of leaving the others behind. Tatiana refuses to leave without her orphaned nieces, the twins. Paul, in a final, desperate act, deeds his own house to a businessman to bribe him into finding the girls. At the last moment, as the trucks prepare to depart, Paul makes a heart-wrenching decision. He cannot abandon the 1,000 souls who depend on him. He puts Tatiana and his children on the truck, promising to follow, and stays behind. The convoy is a trap. Gregoire has betrayed them, and the Interahamwe are waiting. The trucks are ambushed, and the refugees are dragged out to be slaughtered. Only the timely arrival of General Bizimungu's soldiers, spurred by Paul's frantic phone calls, prevents a total massacre, and the bloodied convoy limps back to the hotel. Now, all hope seems lost. The water is cut off. The last of the bribes have been spent. General Bizimungu abandons them for good. The Interahamwe surround the hotel, firing rockets and preparing for a final assault. Paul tells Tatiana to take the children to the roof if the militia breaks in. "If I do not come," he says, his voice heavy with despair, "you must take them all by the hands and jump." But in his darkest hour, Paul orchestrates one last audacious gamble. He confronts a drunken, defeated General Bizimungu and plays his final card. He tells the general that he is a known war criminal, that the Americans have him on a list, and that Paul is his only witness who can say he tried to help. "You will tell them the truth," Bizimungu pleads. Paul's defiance is absolute. "I will do nothing unless you help me now." The bluff works. Bizimungu, terrified for his own future, provides an escort. The next morning, a UN convoy arrives to take them all, not to the airport, but through the front lines to territory controlled by the Tutsi rebels. As their trucks navigate a road clogged with fleeing Hutu refugees, the killers, now the hunted, they finally cross into safety. In the chaotic squalor of a refugee camp, amidst the sea of lost and broken people, Paul sees a familiar face. It's the businessman, and in his arms are two little girls. Tatiana sees them, and her scream of anguish turns into a cry of pure joy. Paul takes his nieces, Anais and Karine, into his arms. Surrounded by his wife, his children, and the twins, amidst the wreckage of his country, Paul Rusesabagina, the ordinary man who became a savior, finally allows his tears to fall. Thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, stay awesome, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content.